and this will also be a very brief video, just touching on the controversial Nefertiti facial reconstruction of the so-called bust of Berlin. Definitely a controversial subject, I will say, as you could see the social media uproar, and many of the conscious indigenous people today were very angry at the facial reconstruction that was presented. However, I would say that my first response to the uproar would be, one thing that has to be thoroughly recognized is that indigenous black people today, because of us being a highly disenfranchised and denationalized people, we do not have institutions. We do not have our own establishments dealing with our interpretation of so-called Egyptology, anthropology, genetics, etc. We are a very limited people, and because of us being a very limited people, we are not in the position at all to have discussions in regards to our history and how it pertains to other people and their interpretations. That definitely must be understood. We're not in the positions. Again, we don't have the institutions. And until we have the institutions or the establishments, then we can argue. Another thing, just to bring the subject a little bit deeper, again, this will only be brief. One thing that definitely has to be realized is that I find it very interesting that the ancient woman, or the ancient queen, who was emphasized was Queen Nefertiti, which is a very interesting subject because her husband, who we know of as Akhenaten, was in fact an innovator. He was indeed an innovator, much like a messianic entity, which is a very common spiritual energy that you will find throughout ancient history and throughout antiquity. Akhenaten, contrary to popular belief, was not the inventor of monotheism. He, in fact, revived a far older tradition into ancient Tamaray, also known as Egypt today. It was a relatively very old tradition that him and his wife, Nefertiti, revived. And that tradition was the veneration of solar energy, or the sun. And he also understood the effect that the sun's radiation had on the fertility and the procreative ability of indigenous people. He understood this science. Another thing that also should be emphasized is that the Amarna family, or the Amarna royal family, practiced an advanced science known as mating rituals. And I'm emphasizing this because mating rituals was an advanced form of selective mating, which many of the Egyptologists today, or so-called Egyptologists today, will say that the ancient peoples of Tamari or Egypt practice incest. which is partially true. But in fact, they practiced ritualized mating ritual, which dealt with the form of mating that was designed to keep a bloodline completely intact, a bloodline pure. And through keeping the bloodline extremely close on a genetic level, they were able to keep a certain level of conscious awareness, a certain level of spirituality. Therefore, the royal families were able to prosper at a much higher frequency than any other people. And these families, well, one thing that I will definitely highlight as well is that many indigenous people today do not practice this. Most of these practices have been stolen from the ancient world's high cultures. Most of the people today that practice it are mostly Orientals, people that you find in areas like China, Japan. This is why these people are so advanced. And again, this is a practice that you don't find among the more indigenous or the higher melanin dominant peoples of the earth today. And mating ritual among indigenous people would definitely be the most advanced, because we are the most genetically superior and the most cosmically aligned, biologically speaking. And this was a practice that was found amongst the family of Nefertiti. This is something that Egyptologists will not teach. Many of them will try to write this off under subjects such as occult science or pseudoscience. However, this is most certainly a very real science. This is definitely a reality. This is also one of the many reasons why studying the Amarna family anthropologically, you see the distinctive alkaline features in the phenotype of these people, where, if you've noticed, they had the elongated heads and the very distinctive bone structure. These were features that you find among a people who were highly advanced. They were highly advanced on a spiritual level as well as a technological level. And what needs to be understood is that the sciences that these ancient people were a part of, white people will try their best to keep indigenous people away from this. This is the primary reason why they will never show you images or proper images of what these people look like. They will never show you this. They're going to show you what they want to show you so that you could shy away from the information, or just to distract you so that you can continue to argue with them, to keep you from putting in the work that you need to be putting in order to get back on that frequency that your ancestors were once on. So these are discussions, I would say personally, that our people should be having. We should most certainly be having these discussions. These are what you call real discussions that will motivate us to the positions that we need to be. But again, this was intended to be a brief video. We will definitely be discussing more of this in the future. I will definitely be putting more information out so that we could have again, real discussions, real conversations that will literally get us from one position to the next. First starting with our spiritual healing, and first starting with our mental elevation. So, to be continued. Thank you for listening in. And everyone, continue to be blessed and keep positive energy coming your way. And peace and many blessings.